Get the whole story.
So now, in October 2022, that was last year, the Kenyan government, under the leadership of President Uhuru Kenyatta, together with his deputy William Ruto, formed a task force to collect public views on how the country will be changing the curriculum, moving away from the 844 system to the new CBC, the competency-based curriculum, and make recommendations. Now, this is what happened. The collection of the public opinion was concluded in November 2022. The government was actually reviewed the findings and processed it, completed it, and updated the country about it, and now give birth to the, I don't want to call it the new curriculum, but give birth to the competency-based curriculum that we're now seeing, you know, from we're talking about grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6. Then now we continue to 7, 8, and 9. Then now we move on to senior secondary school, that is grade 11 to 12. Then from there we move to the university level. But then this competency-based curriculum is based more on delivering learning and evaluate the strength and the weaknesses of the learners. But there has been a lot of reactions about the CBC, this new system, because the CBC is the country's new education system introduced in the country back in 2017. Under the system, each learner progresses, progress actually is monitored over a period of 2 years, 6 years, what we are now calling as the junior secondary school, JSS, and then 3 years. That is from the 3 years, then you go to another 3 years. So it is 2, 6, 3, 3 years, evenly divided into 3 major levels of education: early years education, middle school education, senior school, tertiary, and university education. But then now recently, there have been several proposals in terms of reducing the number of subjects that students at the JSS will be learning. And of course, also we are seeing the powers of TSC, the Teacher Service Commission, that is the teacher's employer, being reduced. And so this is a discussion that I want us to have today when we are reviewing the CBC curriculum. And of course, with me here in our studios, brilliant minds, and of course you have a representation from NAT, a representation from KUPPET, and a representation from the education sector. So let me begin with Akelo Misori, seated on my immediate left. Thank you for joining us. He is the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. Asante sana for joining us this evening here on KTN News. Thank you so much. Hello, viewers. Then seated next to Akelo Misori is John Mugo, who is the Executive Director of Zizi Afrique. Seated directly to opposite me, then that is John Mugo. Thank you for joining us this evening on KTN News.
Thank you, Zeda, for having us, and good evening.
Good evening. And of course, from the Kenya National Union of Teachers, the Secretary General, this is a union that was so vocal about whether grade 7, 8, and 9 should be domiciled or it should have its own learning environment, like its own facilities. And I'm talking about the Secretary General of NAT, that is Collins Oyu. He'll be delving deeper into why NAT had the stand as to why the junior secondary school should be domiciled at the school levels and not outside the primary school. Thank you for joining us here on KTN News tonight. Now, gentlemen, let me begin first of all by John Mugo before I bring in the Secretary Generals of this giant teachers union here in the country. But John Mugo, do you think the country was ready for CBC?
I think the country was ready when the previous system started failing, which I would refer back to 2000, because I belonged to what you are calling 844. You know, the initial years in the 1980s when a new system that was based on, self-reliance, having practical skills and so on. But because of lack of investment, they kept on getting rid of one practical subject after another. And the last was in the year 2000. And so what we are left with is not what we can call 844. It's something that I don't know, what the teachers call, because it was now left as an academics only thing, where the only thing that mattered in the student's life was the academic score or the mean score. And I think that is one of the worst things that happened to this society. And we are seeing the effect of it now out here. Because many people, 90%, were labeled failures. Whoever could not make it to the university, you failed. And we know that the way we are created, we are created with different kind of talents. So I think that conversation that started in the early 2000s, on how do we really make our education different.
Right.
So I would say for sure the thing is not going back to an academic only. The thing is bettering an education that takes care of every learner.
All right. And you, Nat, and of course, even including Kupet, had been very vocal about CBC. At some point we had the teachers' union saying this thing has been rushed. There's supposed to be an in-depth consultative meeting held, and that was not done. It's more like this is what the government wanted and this is what we are implementing. And we were told, actually I remember the then Cabinet Secretary for Education said the train has already left the station and it's not going back. But for the teachers' union it was, this train has left, yes, but it will still come back. And that is what President William Ruto did.
Exactly, yes. I want to confirm here that there was no preparedness for CBC. And I also want to concur with you that basically was the reason behind the formation of the Presidential Working Party. At the onset, Kenya National Union of Teachers said no, teachers were not prepared for the rollout of CBC, competency-based curriculum. And because NAT is actually anchored on research, we did the research way back in 2019, and the research findings were out there. Now, dubbed preparedness of teachers for the implementation of competency-based curriculum. That was in March 2019.
All right.
We said it out, and look at what is happening. Exactly what we said. And I'm sorry to say that our position on CBC costed our teachers. About 245 teachers were interdicted. Yes, simply because we got the order from the Secretary General to say, we cannot get into, these CBC trainings. So our colleagues and more so the NAT officials went overboard, and what they did caused so many of us interdictions. So it is true that there was lack of preparedness, preparation, and the country was not yet ready for CBC. All
right. And Missouri, in October 2022, under the leadership of President Uhuru Kenyatta, our immediate former president, formed a task force to collect public views on the implementation of CBC. Then now he exits office, we are seeing President William Ruto was part of the administration, the previous administration, forming another task force to again review what was done by the first task force. Isn't it not sort of like sending a message that the first regime didn't do a good work? I'm coming in, we need to relook at some of the things that were put in place.
I think let us put it in perspective that curriculum implementation is both an expert issue. At the same time, it is a political issue. You need political will to marshal resources to implement good policies and so on. And therefore, once the government has put its feet on a project or a program, it's the government agenda to make things move. And therefore, curriculum implementation of this nature, I think it was one of the most discussed curriculum ever done in Kenya. Because as Dr. Mugu has said, once the 844 began to falter and now not to do what it was supposed to be. For example, it was supposed to be practical based, and now it turned out to be more to bring in rote learning and cut-throat competition, which was not necessary. People are looking for mini grades and so on. There was need for us now to look at what is there. And therefore, the commissioning of our task force to look at the implementation was necessary. But as my brother Oyu has said,
so are you supporting that?
As my brother Oyu has said, where we were in 2022 was when this program had taken 6 good years. 6 good years of implementation. And therefore, nobody raised any issue. But the problem which we had was now the transition.
You're right.
The transition, which was already, as a facade as it may have been, had already had in place. Teachers in primary schools had been prepared up to grade 6.
Right.
No, not adequately, but teachers in secondary schools were also ready to in grade 7. So the problem which came on board here was when now we turned out to look at public or opinion poll to determine where to place junior secondary.
And in fact,
I think that the opinion poll, because the incoming government did look at this thing from the perspective of what they met on the ground, that this education system is too expensive.
All right.
What do we do? And that's why Dr. Ruto, when he came to power, and in his inaugural address, he said we have to relook into this. Which, of course, in my view, was the correct thing to do.
All right.
Because even as we had moved, the late Cabinet Secretary for Education had already said that, yes, the train has left the station. But of course, we also supported him, saying, yes, once it has left the station, then it means that people are coughing in the station. Can you bring doctors and nurses to give the doses so that things can go on?
But you know, be sorry, these people who are coughing at the train station, in quotes, leads me to what I want our viewers to see, about some of the survey, a survey actually, the content of a survey that was done by Tuaweza Africa, and it carried out a survey to establish Kenyans' experiences and opinions on the curriculum reform. And I'd just like us to have that on our screen for our viewers, if it's possible. That survey that was done between the month of November 3rd to 17th last year, where it had about 3,000 respondents. And okay, we have it. Thank you. So the graphics, actually what you're seeing on your screen shows that at least 36%. Let's not even start with structuring of exam assessment. We shall be getting there when it comes to structuring of exam assessment. I want us to go to have a look at the opinion that Kenyans had for CBC as of last year. Kindly, if you can have that on our screen, the opinion that Kenyans had of last year concerning the CBC. And 36% of Kenyans saw that CBC, actually are seeing CBC as being better compared to the old 844 system. And then we have another 22% who preferred the older system. So we have 36% saying we need to go with the CBC, 22% saying we really need to go with the 844 system, which almost all the all citizens, approximately 96%, have had of the CBC, and citizens favor the CBC over the 844 system. So 96% have heard about it, Mugo, and 36% let's go CBC way. 22% saying no, let's remain with the 844 system. But until today, some parents are yet to understand what this whole CBC entails, in terms of even grading. Below expectation, meeting expectation, exceeding expectation. So, and we're used to, your child has gotten maybe mathematics 30% or 10%, and then now you're being brought for, okay, your daughter is ME, meeting expectations, or below expectations, or above. Parents are yet to understand this.
And that's why I considered, honestly, that comment of the train has left the station very unfortunate. Because instead of saying that, you should be the teacher of teachers and the Kenyans. Because parents, every parent wants the best for their child. And the teacher wants the best for the children that they are teaching. So saying the train has left the station does not solve any problem. I think we should break this down to first of all explain what was wrong with the other education. Like the way now Akelo has said, rote learning.
Did you really need to change?
The way I say it, I belong to the survivors of the bad education system. I belong to the 10% myself. So 90%, are not favored. But also breaking down that CBC is not new content. It is the same things they used to learn, but in a different way.
So to you, the 96% of citizens who said, okay, we've heard of the CBC, but still don't even understand the contents of this CBC.
I would actually want you, Zeda, to pay attention to 42%. The difference between 36%, 22%, and 100%.
Yeah.
So that 42%, which is the biggest of the three proportions, are the people who probably did not know what to say because they don't even know what it is. So I think what we need to focus on is breaking this down. What is different between CBC and the other way? As a teacher, because while I agree with Collins that teachers were not trained, we really need to invest, because without a good teacher, what are you doing with the children?
All right.
But then teachers need also to know that CBC is just a different way of showing up in the classroom. You are the same teacher, you know, these are the same children, but now knowledge, it used to be that knowledge was domiciled to the teacher and the syllabus. You would carry a book, and this book was knowledge, and you'd carry it like this, dish out like peanuts to children at a pace when you want. Now you are coming, children have learned from all different type, places. Some of them even know more than you do.
Yeah.
So the place of the teacher just changes to a facilitator rather than one who did. And then the role of the parents. So I think what we need to spend is a lot of time getting teachers to believe that it is possible, parents to believe that it is possible, and breaking this down in a way that they can be able to action.
And has this been broken down to the teachers and to make them understand that CBC is possible? And then who is supposed to explain, or who is supposed to be the trainer of trainer to these parents? Because the parents who are yet to understand the CBC.
That is what went missing. Well, before I comment on what exactly is in CBC, vis-a-vis what we had in 844, allow me to be, to localize my kind of explanation on 844 condemned our learners in three stages. End of class 8, you don't qualify to go to a secondary school, a better secondary school. Then you're done. You either become a yaya if you are a girl, or become a shamba boy if you are a boy.
So it sort of like killed your dreams.
Yes, and then at Form 4, if you don't qualify for university, you get married if you are a girl, sorry to say so, if you are a lady, and for the boy, you get to, unskilled labor. That is why we have so many Mjengo young men in urban centers. Most of them are dropouts from Form 4. And if you don't actually train for, a course that is not competitive and, gets you into some employment, at the end of university, you end up even being a border rider. No skill at all, you don't have anything to do. When you go to border points, ask them. Form 4 leavers and the university school leavers. So this was condemning our learners or our children in the 3 stages. The coming in of the competency-based curriculum, I think, was a well-thought idea. If you really get into what is there for CBC, and I still repeat, this was one of the best decisions, but at the wrong time. It was basically the timing that was very wrong with CBC. And that is why even parents who don't even know what is in CBC, some will say yes, some will say no.
But who's supposed to train them? Or who's supposed to train these parents?
Well, it is not a question of
because
training.
You see, for the teachers, we had TSC involved and KICD involved to train teachers. Then the teachers become trainer of trainees. But now who is supposed to train these parents?
The training of teachers was very, very inadequate. I want to be clear on that. You cannot train on CBC for a few days and you say you've trained. And
so are we having half-baked teachers in class?
And it was a problem because what the teacher gives a learner to take home, the teacher himself does not even understand well what is right here. So the parents don't even know what should be done. And these are the complaints that came up. CBC is, this is a devil in the room. So some of them came up strongly saying that they don't understand what is here. Preparedness ought to have started with the teachers.
All right. So Sorry.
And even those who trained teachers at some time, who trained them to train the teachers? They didn't understand what they were training.
But I thought it was
some of them could just train.
So you're trained here, then you go train another teacher, then another teacher trains another teacher.
Those who trained the first cohort of teachers were not even trained. Just materials presented, you read, and teachers are told, you've been trained, go and teach.
All right, so what I'm getting from Oyu Akello here is that and this is with all due respect to our teachers out there, it's not that I'm belittling the teachers, but what I am getting from Oyu is that the teachers who are currently, some of them, not all, some of the teachers who are teaching this CBC are half-baked teachers when it comes to this system. Those are not my words.
Madam Brenda,
those are the words of Oyu.
Don't to be apologetic, but let me put it in perspective.
And then it begs the question, then the government needs to look at the sort of education that our children are getting in school.
Yes, but let me put it in perspective. That teachers are not specifically trained for a specific curriculum. Our Kenyan teachers are exported, they teach in Seychelles, they teach in Germany, they teach in US, they teach. What is required is orientation. And therefore, what lacked is not the teacher training, but the teacher orientation and sensitization, so that they change their mindset to the new system.
All right.
Because as Dr. Muko has said it, it is not the change of content, but how do you go to that class? Are you now the know-it-all teacher, which I was? It is not like that. It is a new environment. And in fact, all of us who have trained as teachers, in the continuum of knowledge, we have got various methodologies that we use. And some of them we have minimized because of the curriculum that we are teaching. For example, when we, personally, I started teaching as a trained teacher. Fortunately, it was also at the time when 844 was. I taught for 3 years as an untrained teacher. I found a system which quite a number of people were struggling to get to terms with. But when I came out of college, I was prepared to teach every secondary school teacher my subject area from Form 1 to Form 4, not beyond that. And therefore, I had the knowledge from the previous system, but my orientation was basically to teach.
So to teach the mindset.
The mindset. So what we lacked and what we still lack to date, because I don't see where the parents are coming in, that who is going to teach the parent. Right. We don't teach parents in school.
Okay, not really teaching them.
We teach the land, but the parents were supposed to be sensitized. The failure of the Ministry of Education to give a correct information at the right time messed the process.
All right.
And that's why my brother is talking that the teachers were not prepared, but he also accepted that the junior secondary should just be domiciled in primary school, where we had serious questions about the capacity of how to handle the curriculum at that level. So what we have here is that when you want to implement a curriculum, that change must be brought in by the implementers, by the stakeholders. And in this case, the stakeholders are the parents. They were not, their ideas were not brought into the fold. And teachers were not properly sensitized so that they can change their tradition and to look at this one as just new approaches to teaching skills and knowledge in a classroom situation. Yes.
All right. So now, gentlemen, we need to take a short breather. Dr. Muga, I know you have a burning point.
You're letting me breathe when I'm not ready to breathe.
Please just breathe. Breathe in and breathe out. Just hold on to your thought. We need to take a short commercial break. When you come back, you'll give us your sentiments, because it looks like you wanted to you wanted to respond to. I don't know that my director can give me a minute. Let me breathe. It's fine. Okay, just breathe it. Breathe it. All right, just breathe it. When we come back, you'll give your sentiments on that. Then we'll get into the heated discussion about the structuring of exam assessment. We're seeing there's a proposal to restructure it, away from what the initial CBC was all about. So don't go away. Keep it KTN News.